Hello, my little gluten-free muffins. Welcome to full body effective weight training with yoga. So we will get into the entire body. I have a variety of weights. If you have a variety, you might have that handy, or we'll make work whatever you have. So come and join me on your mat. Please feel free to grab a towel or a blanket, as always, for padding underneath your seated posture or underneath your knees. Let's sit on that now. Oh, and I have these gloves. So I love to use workout gloves. I don't always use them. These were, I don't know, $10 on Amazon. Sim Dry, I think is what they're called. But anyway, find some that you like. They have them at Marshall's and TJ Maxx and things like that, even Walmart and Target. Just in case your skin is tender like mine. All right, let's get to it. Inhale and sigh out. Find a posture that makes you feel alive and awake and aware of your center. And we'll do that breath again. Inhale through the nose and sigh out through the mouth. Bring your hands together at the heart and let any intention arise for you that brings you closer to self-acceptance, to taking this time for you uniquely, and for centering to either the center of your heart or even the center of your belly, the center of your core, whatever your center feels like for you today. Take another in-breath. And we'll take a sigh and we'll start to shake off our clutter. So really let that happen, like you're kind of drenched in water and you really want to get all that water off without a towel. Let it go. Oh, that feels good. Okay, now from here, bring the hands to the knees and let's take some circles around, waking up through our spines and our hips and our shoulders. And let's reverse that rotation. Coming into our breath with a little more curiosity. And we'll sit back up tall and roll the shoulders back and down a few times. Ooh, that made me want to yawn. Maybe we'll take a yawn and stretch our jaws. And come into your very first child's pose. If you want to put your blanket down already under your knees for that, you absolutely can. Knees together or separated. Maybe this is a modified child's pose on the forearms, or maybe you're coming down a little further for a little more of a stretch. Deep breath in. Sigh that out. We'll rise up to all fours, and I do recommend the blanket at this point. And also, if you don't want to have your gloves on for this part, you can always take them off and put them on later. For your all fours, spread your fingers gently wide, and we'll start to draw the chest down a little bit, rolling the shoulder blades back, lifting the hips, and then maybe lift the gaze. So I don't want you to lead this back bend with the chin. So find that in the spine first, and then maybe lift the gaze a bit, just on the horizon. And as you exhale, round in, press into the floor with your hands a little more actively, maybe more actively with the knees to engage more of the organs towards the spine. And then one more time, opposite direction, just expanding through that front of the torso, and then exhale, expanding through the back of the torso. Come into your neutral position, and we'll create a little bit more heat either with a knees down plank, just moving the knees a little further back, maybe letting them come closer together, or coming into a full plank here. So still organs towards the spine, but not rounding quite as much. There is an element of rounding. It's not a rainbow. And then working the ankles front to back if you're in that full posture. Breathing here. And then really rooting what's touching the floor, especially through the hands, gentle through the fingertips. Lower the knees down if they're not, and we'll come back into the child's pose of choice. Breathing here. And just taking this opportunity to be in that sensation of breath going in and leaving. We'll take a stretch for the underside of the forearms because we're going to be holding weights, and that really contracts and works the underside of the forearms. So this is good for the wrists as well. Keeping the shoulders right over the wrists is probably good for most of us. If you're not feeling enough of a stretch, you can always lean back, even tuck the toes and reach a little further back. Breathe. This is a pretty big stretch for most of us. And then come back to all fours and downward facing dog. Slow transition into that downward dog as always. And find your downward dog. The feet can be the distance apart that feels right to you. Soften through the neck. Check if you are over lifting at the head. Let that go. And you saw probably what I was already leading into a little prematurely. Let's go ahead and turn your heels over a little bit to the left. They don't have to touch the floor. Press through your hands and reach your heart a little more to the legs. Come through center, lift the heels, and then rotate the heels to the right and press the heart back. So gaining access to the shoulders, the spine, and the legs. Center, heels don't have to touch, of course. And then from here, we're gonna lower 1/3 of the way down to all fours. Draw your organs towards your spine. 2/3 of the way down to all fours. And then all the way very, very slowly to your all fours position. You'll walk the fingertips back from there. And here's where we will choose our first set of weights. So you can choose to find whatever weight works for you. I'm gonna go a little heavier on this one, but I'm gonna show you first, and then you can decide. It's a kneeling lunge, so right foot forward, left knee back, and then it's just a hammer curl. So hammer curl, instead of facing the underside of the forearm forward, you face it in, and then we're gonna move that hammer curl up and down. So you can do this with whatever weight works for you. Know that we're gonna do this with both sides, so one leg and then the other. So we're just doing a small amount on each side, and then take it down. From here, you're gonna hinge with your arms long and slowly set those weights down onto the floor. Lift the back knee up and transition your front leg forward. Now you're in a plank holding on like to the bars of the weights, right? So holding on, breathing here, and then you might attempt to take your wrist a little more straight. So rather than collapsing in, little more straight. Lower the knees 1/3 of the way down, 2/3 of the way down, all the way down. And then come up and give the wrists and the arms a little shake. If, of course, your knee was bothering you, and I should have said this earlier, I will try to remember to put it in text. If it was bothering you for what we were doing before, the hammer curls, you can do it here, or in a high lunge with the back knee lifted, okay? So whichever one works for you. Take your other foot forward, grab your weights, slowly come up. You're roughly 90-90 in the legs, and then we'll begin our hammer curls. Up and down. Your back toes can be tucked under or the top of the foot down. I like to tuck mine because it helps me stabilize my kneecap, that patella, but if you prefer the other way, absolutely. Up and down. 2 more. Last one. And slowly straightening the arms. And then on that transition, there's the hinge of the torso forward to take the weights down onto the ground. Tuck the back toes if they weren't, lift the back knee, take yourself into plank. You can always come down to knees down plank. Breathe here and maybe attempt to straighten out the wrists a little bit more rather than collapsing the wrists in towards the midline. 3, 2, 1. Lower the knees and come into child's pose. You have an option to use your weights in child's pose. You can actually use them to place your hands on, one or both. So your hands are a little higher and you can drop the chest down a little bit lower. You can even stack your hands on the higher portion of the weight if your weight will stand up vertically. and draw the heart down. If you do that, put the other hand on top and switch. Rising up. Go ahead and move those weights to the side and come into another downward facing dog, please. In that downward, and remove the hair from your pants, which is what I needed to do. Pedal out through the hamstrings. And then we'll walk the hands back down towards the feet. Take a gentle fold, bend the knees to the degree that feels right to you. Shake out through the arms a little bit and move your blanket to the side. I'm actually gonna move it there. And we'll do half of a fold. So inhale, rise halfway up, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold. And then bend the knees around the spine, dangle the head and the arms. Let the legs kind of train track in alignment and come all the way up. At the top of that, bloom the shoulders gently back and come into mountain pose. So mountain pose is not rigid, and our natural state of body is not to have the shoulder blades all the way on the back. That's nice to do to get mobile and to work the muscles, but just know that if that's not your natural state, it's because it's not supposed to be. All right, grab a medium set of weights. Yeah, if you don't have like large, medium, small, then go ahead and go for your lighter weights on this one. And we're gonna take this into a row. So take the feet closer together for you. So sitting bone distance apart, or maybe a little wider. You're going to hinge your hips back, bend the knees, let your arms hang down holding those weights, and then glide the inside of your upper arms alongside of the rib cage, drawing your elbows back. So not collapsing and not over rounding here or hunching up through the shoulders. Try to find right in between those two, so you have support all around the torso and the elbows are drawing back. Then from there, we're gonna change it up a little bit and how we have to stabilize the work. So let both arms come down. They're not going straight down, they're slightly forward. And then we'll lift and lower and then alternate, lift and lower. You'll probably feel that at your core, you're stabilizing differently, and even through the legs, especially depending on the weight that you're using. If at any time the weight that you're using doesn't feel right, take a break without weight, or go up or down with your weight accordingly. Now bring your weights down, turn them forward, and then straighten all the way up. Turn your knuckles sort of to face you underside of the forearms. Breathe here. We're just letting the shoulders get used to this position, this starting position. Now take your feet wider than your hips this time, not too wide. And now we'll take this into the shoulders. So drawing the weights up and down. Up, they'll come a little further apart, and down, they'll come a little closer together. Up and down. So I just noticed I was locking out my knees, so I'm gonna put a tiny little minute bend there and stop hyperextending. One more. We're gonna hold this up and we're gonna lower it really slowly. Whew, that is a lot of work in the shoulders. And then soften the shoulders down, take the arms straight, take just the arms by the sides holding onto those weights, so a little traction in the arms. For the next thing that is also in the arms for the rotator cuff, you probably want to go medium to light to begin. I'll show you and then you can kind of decide. You're going to keep your elbows bent in towards the sides. They don't have to be touching the sides, but they're not out here. And you're going to rotate to the sides and any amount back. To the sides and any amount back. So based on that, you might give it a try. And if you want to add a little bit more, we're going to take this into a split stance. So one leg forward, one knee back. The leg that's back can either be bent for more work or it can be straight for a little more stretch to the hip flexors. So either one is going to give you benefit. It's just a different benefit. One more time out and in. Then take the weights down, very carefully transfer more weight into that front foot and maybe hop that back foot slowly in and march it out. If you took the split stance on one side, take it to the other side. We'll continue with a few more of these rotator cuff moves. We're gonna get really strong today. If this ever becomes too much, you put the weight down and you continue the action as if you're moving through molasses or moving through sand or water, okay? 1, and lean a little bit forward, shift the weight, and take the back foot slowly in. Breathing here, sigh it out. Place your weights down, and we'll open into the side body and shoulders a bit. So take a reach up, back and down, and then other side, up, back and down. Oh, the freedom when you're not holding the weight anymore, right? Let that go. If it feels really good to kind of turn towards the side, kind of a little bit of a turn, you can, or you can isolate this more in the shoulders. Feel what you need more of and do that. One more, both sides, or both arms rather. And then we'll shake out again. This time, let's shake out the legs. Get them a little bit more involved, and we'll come to the glutes and the hamstrings. So we're gonna do a similar move. Part of it will be more for the glutes, part of it will be a little more for the hamstrings. So you can go pretty heavy on this for you. Your heavy is different than anyone else's heavy, but what we're gonna look like is this Romanian deadlift. It's a slight bend in the knees, it's a hinge at the hips. It's definitely not straight legs, and it's also not a low lunge, all right? So one weight in both hands, where you're holding either side of the weight, or 2 weights, bending, hinge at those hips, and take those weights down. Now you're not trying to touch them to the ankles, you're coming a little more forward than that. And in fact, the more forward you come kind of to the toes, or maybe even past the toes, you might feel this differently in the hamstrings. So take your time, go up and down with this. You might come more in front of the knees. You might come more in front of the thighs. So your range of movement is really up to what feels best for you and your body. Never straight knees with this one, please. Okay, and then I told you we're gonna make a little shift. So the weight chain, we're keeping the weight the same, but this time we're actually gonna bend deeper into the knees. So this is gonna shift us a little more into the glutes, especially if you press actively into your heels. So continue with that work that you were doing. This one is more like a squat. And again, you're finding the range of movement that works for you. Maybe you're coming part of the way down, like this. 3, press your heels down. 2, oh, thank goodness there's only one more. 1, but now we're gonna take this very slow transition, pressing into the floor, all the way up. Probably feel your back working as well. Take the arms down by the sides, let that just traction the arms. Breathe, and place your weights down. Working the low back is actually really good for us. So sometimes in yoga, we're a little focused on always stretching and stretching the low back, but it's also nice to work the low back as well. It's all about balance. Okay, so speaking of balance, we're gonna get into the quads. So grab 2 weights. You can go pretty heavy because the quads are a large muscle group. And this time we're gonna take our feet roughly right underneath our hips and then begin to do a pretty full, to the degree that works for your knees, just squat. Okay, so more classic, the weight is down to the sides, up and down. You're rooting the heels, yes, but you're also rooting the ball joints of the feet. When I showed you the prior work, I was really allowing you or telling you to focus on your heels because most of the time in that activity, we focus on the front of the foot. Up and down here. And then from here, we're gonna come into a hold. So come into the squat level that works for you. Hold, draw your low belly up and in. Breathe. And now slow, slow, slow transition up. We're all gonna sing a happy song when this is over. And come up to standing. Nice. Place your weights down. And then shake it all out. Mountain pose, find your breath. Hands where you want them. Unlock the knees, unlock the movement of your lungs, and unlock positive intention through your system. Take a swallow, relax your throat, relax your jaw. Make sure from the weights that you're not holding that tension in the jaw, which so often happens. And we'll go for a lighter weight this time. I'm gonna go with 10 pounds, but probably do 10 or less because we're gonna move that weight far away from our bodies. And the further away the weight goes, the harder we have to stabilize and work. So you're gonna grab your weight and you're gonna hold it in either hand like so, and take it in front of you. And if you already are there and you're like, that was too much, put it down, grab a lighter weight, or skip the weight and just do the action. And then from here, we're just going to, like a salt and pepper shaker very slowly, or an hourglass. You're going to rotate one on top and then the other. If that becomes too much, you're gonna bend the elbows and do it closer to you. Be careful of the wrists. You can actually allow the hands to rotate around rather than feeling like they have to grip the same point on the weight. Up and down. One shoulder is an internal, one shoulder is an external. Oh my goodness, core is working. And then bring that weight in and hold it so you're kind of holding the heels of the hands under the weight and your elbows underneath. And breathe. Let the shoulders relax a little bit from holding that weight so far away from you. Now you can stay with this size weight for the tricep work, or you can go for a heavier weight. I'm gonna go ahead and stay with this one for today. The triceps, when you do it, your elbows are coming towards each other so that they're roughly in line with your wrists. So take your feet underneath you, a little wider than your hips, bring the elbows up, and you're gonna try not to keep them so forward of the face, but a little further back. It will depend on our shoulders a lot. And we'll just go up and down roughly 90 degrees. You might lift one heel to just transfer more weight over to one side and work the balance there. If you want to work a little more with balance, you might lift the knee and stay there. If you're doing the balance, switch sides, lift the heel, other heel, and then lift the other knee. Please know that the balance is way secondary to the work in the triceps, so you can save that for another day. And then both feet down if one was lifted. And from here, bring the weight back in front of you and breathe here. Soften at the neck, soften at the jaw. Go ahead and take that weight down. And we're gonna move through a vinyasa of your choice. So come to one short edge of your mat, inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold, bending the knees any amount. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, Uttanasana. Step back into your plank. And feel free to come down to child's pose. Maybe you're moving through a vinyasa. This could house a cobra or an upward dog. Maybe a child's pose or a downward dog or a little bit of both. We'll join in downward dog if you're not there. And from here, we'll take a deep inhale and a sigh out. One more time, inhale, and sigh that out. Look to the top of your mat, take your feet there. Inhale, rise halfway up. Exhale, any amount of fold. And then choose how you want to rise and come all the way up. Careful with that low back, reach any amount, and then bring your hands to your heart. Deep breath in, and let's shake off the clutter again. So we'll move into the calves and into a little more focused balance. On this one, we're just gonna hold a weight very close to us, similarly to what we just did. So you can hold a heavier weight, one, and hold that next to you, very close to you. And then we're just gonna do some heel raises. So we're gonna start with the heel raises very close to the ground, up and down. If you have a tendency to kind of flare the ankles to the sides, you could always work on just gently hugging to the midline, or even you could put a yoga block kind of on that second width of the yoga block in between the calves. And then you can, of course, raise it up a little bit more. You can add some hovers. You can add more height. You can add some pulses. You can play with this as much as you want. This is that lower portion of the posterior chain, but I'm sure you're feeling it higher up on the back of the legs and the glutes as well. This is pretty fiery. 3, 2, and 1. Oh, if you had a block, take that away. Move your weight down to the front of your mat. And we'll just shake out the legs a little bit and get a little calf and hamstring stretch. So put a little bend in the knees, kick one heel out, and then put your hands on the other bent knee. You're taking your feet out kind of like about 45 degrees, kicking it out to the side, and then breathe here. Whew, you might sway the hips a little side to side, spread the toes out, opening the whole back of that leg. And then again, about 45 degrees out, you're bending into one leg where you're putting your hands, and swish and sway and open the back of that leg. Oh, this is what I live for. The calm before the storm. All right, but the storm is also necessary. I'm not going to get into this. We're not going to get into the metaphors. All right, shake it out. You know I'll go, so you know I'll do it. Okay, so from here, in fact, I'm going to turn towards you. You can stay at the top of your mat if you want. But we're going to take our feet wider than our hips, and that one weight is down, okay? And then from here, other hand will start on the waist. I would say to maybe go with a lighter weight on this one if this is a newer move. So we're going to practice with an invisible weight first. So grab the invisible weight, take it up, and lift it overhead. So a lot of us might want to use a much lighter weight to do that action, okay? You transfer it back down similar to how you got it up. Bending the elbow to the side, continuing the rest of the way up, back in front of the shoulder, and putting it down, okay? Same thing on the other side. But we're gonna do that with a little bit more speed. It's not fast, but it's more speed than that. So please choose wisely. Hand on the hip to start, and you're gonna stay on one side for just 3 or 4, up and down with the torso. You can always take the other arm out to the side for a little bit more challenge. Okay, then here we'll come into a little bit of a goddess squat, not low at all. Pause and breathe, put your hands on your thighs. Find the location of your breath. Move it around. Straighten up the legs, turn the toes back forward. Remember, you're not hyperextending. One hand on the waist, and then from here, lifting it up. So this is my left arm, which is weaker than my dominant arm. So this feels a lot tougher to press it up, especially at the top. Other arm might come off to the side. Just 3 or 4, we're about there. I think I did that one a little faster. If you haven't done, I'll wait. And then we'll come into that wider stance, turn the toes slightly out, and come into that very high up goddess squat where we're just kind of hanging out on the legs. Breathe here. Center. Straighten up the legs, turn the toes forward. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold down. Maybe fingertips are on the floor. Maybe you're on blocks or a chair. Possibility of going deeper into the fold if that feels like it's safe and healthy for the body and that the body needs it. Very carefully, we'll heel toe in, grab the weight, bending the knees, come on up and transfer that weight off of the mat. We'll go back into our wide stance and just give ourselves some external rotation. So turn one knee out to the side, other toes are slightly in. We're in warrior 2 legs. Drop the arms down, let them be slack. Now, like they're rising to the surface of water, let them rise up. Put some energy from your heart center out through the fingertips and gaze over the front fingers. Breathing here. Notice if you are not rooting your front heel, especially if not, put a little root there. And from here, we'll straighten the front leg, reach up, turn the toes forward, exhale, float the arms down. Hands either interlace or hands to the waist. Inhale, open the heart. Exhale, any amount of fold or not. This might be hands back down to the floor if that feels safer for you, especially for balance or for the way your shoulders feel. Very careful with the transition to rise all the way up. Shake out the arms, and we'll come into that external rotation on the other leg, other hip. Set yourself up in the legs first. Feel very confident and grounded there. And then let those arms rise to the surface of water, energy through them, gentle energy, and gaze over the front fingertips. You have done such hard work already. You are definitely warrior status at this point. And straighten that front leg, reach up, turn the toes forward, and exhale, bring your hands to your heart. Deep breath in, and shake off your clutter, and heel toe or hop in with bent knees. And we'll come into our mountain pose. Inhale, sigh out, and we get to come all the way down onto our backs. So have whatever props you want for Shavasana to be ready. We're not quite ready to go there, but have them near you. And we'll come into a chest press. So knowing that that's where we're going, feel free to choose the right weight for you. When we do our chest presses, I'd like you to give some focus to what's happening with the rib cage and with the low back. So if you have a tendency to kind of press up because your weight is so heavy and so much so that you're lifting the lumbar off the mat like so and kind of lifting the low ribs, then maybe that weight is a little too much. So I would rather see for this, not that lifting the lumbar is always bad, it's not, but for this, I'd like to bring a little more pressure of rooting the lumbar, drawing the organs towards the spine, supporting here, and then bringing in our shoulder press work while we keep the core a little more stable. So we're moving the weights up and closer together and then out to the sides. This is roughly 90 degrees, up and down. And when you come down, of course, if it's too heavy, you can put the weight down and take a break. If you can, try to keep the movement a little more constant, where there's a little pause at the top and a little pause down at the bottom, but you're not stopping. And hello, Josephine. And you're not taking the triceps to the floor. Up and down. Check in with that lumbar. Make sure that it's touching the earth. And then from here, we'll rotate the underside of the forearms to face, and we'll begin to move this up and down. I find this even tougher. So if that is the case for you, instead of taking two weights like this, you will take one weight and you will just move this one weight up and down, up and down. Elbows drawing more in than to the sides. One more. And we'll go ahead and take the weights down to the side. Make sure they're a little out of the way for the, for the knees, hi baby, to hug in to the belly. If you like to lift your head and your chest up for that, you can. If not, you can let yourself lie down. And then we'll come all the way to seated. Sit up nice and tall and find our breath. Go lay down, Joe. Josie, go. Get in your bed. In your bed. Good girl. Deep breath in. Big sigh out. That lasted. Okay, so come on to a seated pose, and we will move our weights to the sides. And always be careful when you're moving your weights that you're not just willy-nilly moving the weights, because a lot of people harm themselves when they're kind of just twisting and not really focused. All right, so we'll come into a seated position. This is not yoga with Adrian. I do not have a well-behaved dog right now. Okay, this is a puppy. All right, so we're gonna take a little break. I'll be right back. So I needed to send Josephine into another room. Take a deep breath in and sigh that out. If you're okay with it, could you please cross your legs in the opposite, non-habitual way? We want to gently make changes in the body that get us a little out of habit and help us balance left to right a little bit more. So even when I do that, just know that even when I do that, my brain starts to flicker like, ooh, I'm not into that. Let's see if we can breathe through it. Inhale through the nose and through the nose. Exhale. Slow through the nose. Exhale through the nose. Continue with the focus on your breath. Now we'll stay with a similar focus, but we'll interlace our fingers behind the head. They could be a very loose interlacing or barely of an interlacing at all. Inhale, lift the heart, elbows draw open, stretching those pecs that we just worked. Exhale, round the spine, draw the elbows in. Inhale, open. This is great for any occasion, but if you've been sitting at the desk a lot or driving, this is really good. Inhale, open. And exhale, round. And inhale, leave on an opening. And then exhale, just float the arms down, hands back to the legs, and roll the shoulders around a few times. One arm on top, give yourself a hug. You can round in with this one, or you can even take a little twisting. See how that feels on the shoulder blades. You can roll it around. You can move the elbows up and down. You might feel something in the shoulders there. And then go wide open and other arm on top and find some stretching, some movement. Maybe those elbows up and down, even lateral stuff. Rounding in any amount, lifting up any amount. And then we'll expand. Inhale, palms up. Exhale, float the arms down. Roll the shoulders down and around a few times, and then check in with the neck. Oh yes, because we did do a lot of lifting, and a lot of times our neck muscles or our jaw muscles, like I said before, try to take over some of that work. So we'll release those and come on down onto your back body. This is where having some height under the knees might feel good. And lay on down. If you would like to do a little bit of one knee in, extend through the other leg, and back and forth, that can feel really nice, with or without the blanket underneath. One more time, both knees in, point and flex through the ankles, move your toes, and then set yourself up for final relaxation. Hands where you want them. And go to the breath. Focus a little bit more on the exhalation to help calm the nervous system. I don't want you to empty to the point of feeling like you're hardening through the core or the rib cage in order to get the exhale out. It's just a little bit longer than the inhale. And drift a little more into your release. See if you can loosen your grip on control. Even on the control of the breath at this point, just let the breath do what it knows how to do as you rest. Start to bring back some focus to the breath, back some focus to the body, and place any stretches where stretches would like to be placed. You might bring yourself back more in towards the midline, bending the knees. And take your time transitioning back to seated. Taking a moment to set yourself back up into that beautiful seated alignment. Not only aligned physically, but seeing if we can bring some emotional and mental alignment all together as a whole. Even that spiritual alignment, all of the alignments. Feel yourself as whole because that's what you are. Bring your hands together to your heart. Thank you so much for choosing my class today and for choosing yourself today. Namaste.